Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into a truly unexpected idea today, one that pulls inspiration from something incredibly precise, like laser physics,
Right.
and applies it to something as complex and human as, well, how we learn and maybe how we prepare for a world that feels like it's changing faster than ever.
It's a fascinating connection, isn't it? Taking these principles from, controlling light at almost speeds you can't comprehend
hmm
and suggesting they offer real insights into cultivating young minds.
Absolutely. And this deep dive centers around a piece called The Spark in the Spectrum,
Yep.
William L. Weaver. You actually brought this source to our attention, and it offers a really compelling angle on some foundational ideas about education.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission today is really to pull apart the core metaphor, explore this educational philosophy it proposes, it's called coherent idea seeding, and figure out what these underlying philosophical ideas and some of the technical concepts too really mean for you, the listener, and how we think about navigating complexity through learning.
Yeah, and it's a mission that starts in maybe a surprising place. Advanced laser physics, specifically with a type of laser called a tunable laser, like a dye laser. These are designed to produce light across a really broad spectrum of frequencies or,
Just
colors.
think of it as a laser that can hit many different notes, right?
Yeah.
Across the scale. But the source describes this technical challenge they face.
Yeah.
When you want them to switch on and fire precisely at one specific desired frequency, well, there could be a moment of uncertainty,
A delay, yeah.
a delay, or just a lack of immediate perfect control right at the start. It doesn't instantly sort of sing the right note.
That's exactly it. And the elegant solution to this problem, which the author actually had personal experience with during his doctoral research, is called coherent photon seeding, or CPS. This is where the spark metaphor comes from.
Okay, the spark. So this is the injection of a tiny, tiny fraction of light. It's described almost poetically as a rogue reflection, or just a few seed photons
So just a few.
that are precisely tuned to the target frequency you want the laser to actually hit.
Yeah. And the timing is, well, it's mind-bendingly critical. This seeding happens pico or even femtoseconds before the main jolt of energy hits the lasing medium.
The dye itself,
The dye that's ready to produce the light, yes.
pico, okay, that's a trillionth of a second. Femto is even shorter. So we're talking about setting something up almost instantaneously before the main event kicks off.
Yeah.
What's the effect?
Oh, the effect is profound. This tiny preemptive input doesn't just add more light, it actually prearranges, or you could say seeds, the excited molecules in the dye.
Okay.
It creates a coherent state, an internal alignment. So when that main energy pulse arrives, the laser doesn't hunt around or hesitate. It fires exactly at the intended frequency immediately, strongly.
Wow. Okay, so boiling down the physics metaphor then.
Mm-hmm.
A minimal, precisely timed input of very specific information that's the seed fundamentally changes the state of the system. It overcomes that initial uncertainty and enables really rapid targeted output. That's the spark.
Precisely. And that sets the stage for the educational philosophy Weaver derives from this, coherent idea seeding. Here, the spectrum isn't just colors of light anymore.
Right.
It's the entire range of human knowledge and potential challenges we might face.
And the goal isn't teaching a student to perform just one specific fixed task perfectly, like teaching a laser to only ever fire at one single unchangeable frequency.
No, the goal shifts quite dramatically. It's about seeding minds, especially young minds, with broad foundational concepts and really versatile thinking skills. The ambition here is to cultivate generalists.
Generalists
Mhm.
who aren't locked into a single frequency, but are capable of, as the source puts it, lasing across the entire spectrum of life. Individuals ready to engage effectively with that main pulse, problems, opportunities, unforeseen stuff whenever it arises.
And central to this whole idea is understanding the lasing medium in this human analogy, which is the young mind itself.
Right? The source draws this picture of young minds being like the dye in that tunable laser, a medium with just vast inherent potential, capable of resonating with and processing an incredible range of understanding.
Exactly. I mean, think about the remarkable neuroplasticity of a developing brain, its ability to form new connections, adapt, and just the sheer openness kids often have during their formative years. They really are information sponges.
And using the language of systems thinking, which comes up a lot here, the author points out that young minds are highly open systems.
Meaning they readily exchange energy, material, and crucially, information with their environment. What they encounter, what they learn, what they absorb, it directly shapes their internal structure.
which means the quality and nature of those ideas or that information absorbed early on isn't just, background noise. It's fundamentally shaping their future capacity to learn, adapt, create. It's actually laying down the architecture.
Yeah, and this brings us to a kind of tension, right, between fixed frequencies and tunable spectrums. Modern education often emphasizes specialization, training people to be incredibly good at specific outputs, mastering skills for very defined career paths.
Like optimizing that laser to hit just one frequency super reliably. And the source acknowledges why this is appealing. It's direct, it feels measurable, and it seems to offer a clear path to a job.
Right. There's a practicality to it. But the potential risk of overemphasizing this, especially in a world that changes as fast as ours does, well, it's rigidity.
Hmm.
Being highly optimized for a single niche leaves you vulnerable if that niche disappears, or if a totally new kind of problem arises that's way outside your narrow expertise. You might lack the ability to adapt or even to understand ideas from a different field.
And this is where the power of the generalist comes in, the mind with that tunable spectrum. We even clarifies, though, this isn't just knowing a little bit about everything superficially. That's not the idea.
No, it's much deeper. It's about possessing a really well-understood toolkit of fundamental principles, robust critical thinking skills, and an integrated understanding of how different fields connect. And this is directly linked to a concept the source calls education as agency.
Agency, meaning the capacity to act purposefully, intelligently, make informed choices when things get complex. So a mind that's been seeded with these diverse, coherent ideas is just fundamentally better equipped for that kind of independent navigation.
Yeah, and the source highlights some key abilities that a seated generalist develops. One is perceiving isomorphisms.
Okay, that term sounds a bit dense, but the source explains it as the skill of recognizing common underlying patterns or principles or structural similarities across what seem like vastly different domains.
It's really a cornerstone of systems thinking. It allows you to see how, say, a concept from biology might actually be relevant to a business problem,
Yeah.
or how a pattern in physics shows up in human behavior. It's about unlocking effective knowledge transfer between those traditional silos.
So instead of just having facts stored in different mental boxes, you start to see the common threads holding the boxes together.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And another ability mentioned is navigating hierarchies of complexity.
Right. This is about understanding and integrating knowledge from different levels of how systems are organized. The source gives a pretty useful three-tier example. Tier 1 is the foundational sciences, physics, chemistry, information science, the real basics.
Got it.
Tier 2 is life sciences, cell biology, organismal biology, how living things function. And Tier 3 is social sciences and humanities, consciousness, society, philosophy, those really complex human systems.
And a generalist isn't trapped in just one tier, right?
Yeah.
They're better equipped to connect insights from, say, fundamental physical laws in Tier 1 to how they might constrain or influence biological systems in Tier 2.
Or even human social dynamics in Tier 3. Exactly. That kind of cross-tier understanding is incredibly powerful for tackling complex real-world problems that don't respect disciplinary boundaries.
Okay, but there's a common critique, isn't there? The perceived switching delay for generalists. The idea that a specialist already deep in a problem might seem quicker to offer a solution compared to a generalist who needs time to get up to speed on the specifics.
Yeah, they might seem slower to laze at the appropriate frequency for that specific new problem. The source even calls this the generalist's hurdle.
So how does the seeding help here?
Well, this is precisely where this spark, the coherent idea seeding, provides the solution. Remember, those seed photons, those foundational ideas, aren't just stored facts sitting passively.
Right.
They actively arrange and preload the mental landscape. They create internal coherence, a rich network of connections before the challenge even arrives.
So when the main pulse hits that new project, that unexpected problem, this pre-existing, prearranged mental architecture, allows for incredibly rapid and efficient organization of new information and thought. It's like the scaffolding is already there.
Exactly. It dramatically reduces that perceived switching delay. The mind isn't starting from scratch. It's already primed. It has the right internal structure to quickly find the relevant conceptual hooks and bring its diverse knowledge toolkit to bear on the new specific task. It's ready.
Okay, so if these seeds are so crucial, what are they exactly? The source is pretty clear. They are not just exhaustive facts or job-specific procedures because those things become obsolete so quickly.
Right. The seeds are defined as more enduring, more fundamental elements. They include things like Fundamental principles, core concepts from math logic, probability, patterns, the scientific method itself, how we investigate truth, hypothesis, evidence, basic physics and chemistry
And
principles.
the source highlights that EMI triad, energy, material, and information, as a key example here, right?
Yes, exactly. As a prime example of a fundamental framework for understanding the basic constituents and interactions in basically any system you look at. It's like a universal grammar.
Energy, material, information. That makes a lot of sense, like the foundational grammar for describing reality at many levels. What else counts as a seed?
Well, also enduring concepts. These are the big philosophical questions: ethics, epistemology, which is how we know what we know, human nature, historical analogies that offer perspective, core economic principles, fundamental psychology, ideas that give context across time.
And this one feels really key. Critical thinking and problem-solving frameworks. This is the how you use information, isn't it? Analyzing arguments, spotting assumptions, evaluating evidence, knowing how to synthesize different inputs.
Absolutely crucial. And the source explicitly holds up systems thinking itself as a paramount example of such a framework. It's almost like a master seed that helps you understand how to connect and utilize all the other seeds effectively.
That makes sense.
And finally, metacognitive skills. This is learning how to learn. It's fostering genuine intellectual curiosity, building resilience when you face complexity, developing clear communication. These are skills about thinking and learning effectively.
So what's powerful is how these seeds interact, you're saying. They don't just sit there in isolation.
Not at all. They create fertile mental ground.
Yeah.
So when new information arrives later in life or in a new situation, it finds existing conceptual hooks. This allows for much faster integration, deeper understanding, and frankly, easier retrieval compared to just trying to memorize isolated facts.
And this points back to that systems thinking principle of emergence, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. The combination and interaction of these diverse, coherent seed ideas within the mind can lead to novel insights, creative solutions, and capabilities that were never explicitly taught. The whole really does become greater than the sum of the planted parts.
Okay, so when life presents its main pulse, those real-world challenges, the opportunities, the crises, how does this seeded knowledge actually ignite action?
Well, the source argues pretty strongly that a mind prepared with these coherent foundational ideas is just uniquely equipped to laze effectively when those triggers arrive. They're ready to respond intelligently, not just react blindly.
And what does that look like in practice? What are the benefits?
Well, it means rapid adaptation. You can pick up new skills or knowledge much more quickly because you have the conceptual structures already in place to connect it to.
Makes sense.
It enables innovative solutions. You're not stuck just using one tool from your specialized box. You can draw on diverse principles to approach problems more creatively. Think outside the box, as they say.
Right, and critically.
And critically, informed choices. That broader, more nuanced understanding, built on this foundation of coherent ideas, provides a much more solid basis for navigating complex decisions. That's intellectual agency in action.
So ultimately, embracing this philosophy of coherent idea seeding seems to offer some pretty profound benefits, not just for individuals, but for education and society as a whole.
Definitely. It cultivates enhanced adaptability and resilience, which feels essential today. It prepares individuals not just for their first job, but really for a lifetime of continuous learning and change.
It fuels increased innovation by fostering those connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. It improves problem solving by providing that broader mental toolkit.
And it explicitly cultivates lifelong learners by giving them that stable framework, that scaffold to build new knowledge upon throughout their lives.
And here's that fascinating paradox the source highlights again. It can actually reduce the time to lace. That generalist whose mind is already primed with coherent seed ideas can often master new specifics and apply them effectively faster than someone without that underlying cognitive architecture, even if that other person has highly specialized training.
Yeah, their mental foundation makes them a faster learner when faced with something new and specific.
So this carries some pretty significant implications for how we might design educational systems, doesn't it?
Huge implications. It suggests a fundamental shift from rote memorization towards deep conceptual understanding. The focus really needs to be on the why and the how, on the enduring principles rather than just transient facts that might change tomorrow.
It demands an emphasis on interdisciplinary connections. We need to actively show students how those fundamental concepts like energy, material, and information aren't just confined to one subject, but are universal languages appearing everywhere. The source notes this supports a broader research goal, too: fostering that interconnected understanding.
And it requires explicitly teaching how to think alongside what to know. We have to teach critical thinking, problem-solving frameworks, systems thinking itself as core skills, not just, optional extras.
And perhaps most importantly, it's about valuing and cultivating broad intellectual curiosity, really encouraging exploration, nurturing a genuine love of learning for its own sake. Because any piece of fundamental knowledge, no matter how sort of abstract it seems at the time, could become that crucial seed photon needed to solve a critical problem years down the line. You just don't know.
Exactly. Bringing it back to that opening metaphor, the idea borrowed from laser physics really provides a powerful and I think quite compelling vision for education.
Yeah, it calls for a shift, maybe, away from what sometimes feels like an old industrial model aimed at churning out highly specialized fixed frequency outputs towards cultivating adaptable, resilient, generalist minds that are capable of lazing across the whole spectrum of human experience.
And the core action is intentional, right? It's the conscious seeding of young minds with those coherent foundational ideas of those first principles, those fundamental frameworks like systems thinking.
And the ultimate value proposition isn't just about filling minds with stuff, with knowledge, but really fostering agency, that capacity for individuals to truly understand, navigate, and actively shape their future in a world that is just undeniably complex.
It's about preparing individuals to meet whatever life's main pulse turns out to be effectively, innovatively, and crucially at a moment's notice.
So to kind of wrap this up, the big takeaway from the spark and the spectrum is this really powerful analogy. Just like injecting specific photons precisely at the right time lets a laser fire exactly where and when you need it, intentionally seeding young minds with coherent, fundamental ideas doesn't just fill them with knowledge. It fundamentally prearranges their cognitive landscape, preparing them to tackle complex, unexpected challenges far more effectively and adaptively.
It's a vision that really asks us to reconsider what the most valuable outcome of education truly is, isn't it?
It really is. And it leads us with something to really ponder. How does this idea of coherent idea seeding resonate with your own experience of learning? Think about the things you learned that weren't maybe specific job skills, but fundamental ideas or ways of thinking. What seeds have been most valuable in your own life when that main pulse hit?
Good question.
Or, looking at education today, what crucial seeds do you think are potentially missing from the soil? Definitely something to chew on as you continue your own deep dives.
And we're grateful to you, the listener, for bringing this source material to us. It certainly sparked a truly illuminating discussion for us.
Absolutely. Keep asking those questions, keep digging into those fundamental ideas, and keep exploring the connections.